Hey there, and welcome back to the Boardgame Sherpa channel. I've been off for a couple of weeks recovering from GenCon and putting this special project together. But I'm back, and this episode is the first of a three-parter that I never thought I'd be doing. Today, I overcame my own personal foiling. That's the fear of learning a new game, and I made a whole video about it in the past. But I never thought I'd be overcoming this particular game fear. As a matter of fact, this one is so big that even Tom Vasel of the Dice Tower refuses to play this game. What happened? Stick around. Well, if you read the title, you know the name of the game. But unless you're a big fan or big hater, you probably don't know much about Shadows of Brimstone by Flying Frog Productions. If it wasn't for a good friend of mine, I probably wouldn't know much about it either. But I'll save that story for a few minutes. Shadows of Brimstone is one of those games that just scared the bejeepers out of me since my first GenCon trip back in 2014. And now, 9 years later, a chance meeting at GenCon 2023 gave me the courage and inspiration to overcome my fear of learning it, and document it for your viewing pleasure. So, what is Shadows of Brimstone? Well, back in 2014 when I first found out about it, Shadows of Brimstone was kind of a dungeon crawl board game combining the Wild Wild West with H.P. Lovecraft. Basically, players take on the roles of Old West heroes exploring an otherworldly mind filled with terrifying creatures, mysteries, and treasures. Not really my normal type of game, but the artwork was amazing. My personal board game Sherpa and GenCon roommate Johnny Rocks picked it up at GenCon that year and brought it back to the hotel. And this tough ex-military badass and rock and roll drummer who had served in Iraq was just excited about this game as a little kid on Christmas. Naturally, I wanted to try it at the hotel, given Johnny's giddiness. But he stopped me in all seriousness and told me the game needed to be prepared before it could be played. And as you watch this three-part series, you'll see exactly what the preparation consists of. But for me, who had just started his board game career early that year, I had no clue. 9 years later, I still had no clue until I did it myself. But back in 2014, all I knew is that we weren't going to play Shadows of Brimstone anytime soon. And Johnny didn't put those rulebooks down for most of our GenCon weekend. Brimstone might have been a tad above my skill level. And Johnny, as a responsible board game Sherpa, kind of knew what games I'd actually be into and steered me away from Shadows of Brimstone. As the years progressed, it became more and more unlikely that I would ever give Shadows of Brimstone a chance. I found that as I got deeper and deeper into my board game career, I was definitely into more contained type of games that could be started and finished within a couple hours. I just didn't want to do long campaigns. There's a few reasons for that, but the most practical one is that game nights at the Sherpa house rarely consisted of the exact same people other than Mrs. Board Game Sherpa and myself, and it could be months or years before we actually finished a long-term campaign, if we ever finished it at all. Side note, not directly board game related, but when I saw The Empire Strikes Back on opening day back in May 1980, I absolutely hated it. I know it's many people's favorite Star Wars movie, and I've grown to love it over the years, but that huge to-be-continued cliffhanger at the end, and knowing it would be years before the bad things got resolved, really bothered me at the time. It may be the reason I'm a fan of the dark side and not a fan of campaign games. Anyhow, there are quite a few reasons that this Shadows of Brimstone game scared me to death. Number 1, sheer massiveness. When Johnny opened that box back in 2014, there was a lot of stuff in there. In the next video, you'll see just how much is in the basic core box, but for now, just know it's like getting a board game and like 30 miniature model kits that you have to put together. That's a lot. Now, picture every year they come out with a bunch of expansions and other core box games. Seriously, this Old West-based game has now branched out to include realms of feudal Japan, Vikings, conquistadors, derelict spaceships, mummies, and many, many more. As you'll see later in this video, when John brought his basic setup to my house for a demo game, 2 people had to make multiple trips out to his car to bring it upstairs. Again, basic setup. This was just a fraction of his entire setup he's accumulated over 9 years. It's overwhelming just thinking about it. Number 2, it's expensive. As you can imagine, all these items in the box are expensive to make. There's beautiful artwork on the box cover, game maps, and manuals, and the miniatures are gorgeous and have amazing details. And that's just the core set. There are also must-needed expansions that just add up the dollars. I will say that for slightly over $100 purchase price, you are getting way more than what you paid for. Flying Frog really gives you your money's worth there. But before meticulously going through this game's prep work myself, I did not know any of that. I just saw an expensive game. Number 3. How do you even start? So yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, and it's overwhelming to process. And prior to GenCon 2023, when I went with Johnny to the Flying Frog booth at GenCon each year, I would look at all the miniatures and expansions and upgrades that they were displaying. They were gorgeous, but unless you had a Brimstone Sherpa explaining things to you, it was one big mishmash of stuff that had no starting point. And my personal Sherpa Johnny was in the zone talking to the Flying Frog guys about new stuff and breadcrumbs found in the game on a level I could never come close to comprehending. So, Why didn't I just ask my personal Sherpa, Johnny Rocks, all these questions when we were away from GenCon and in a quiet space? Well, that brings me to my big reason why Shadows of Brimstone scared me to death. Number 4, I was afraid to not like it. Okay, over the course of all my videos here on the Board Game Sherpa, you've probably seen that Johnny Rocks has been a huge influence on my board gaming love. He's the one that introduced me to Survive, Catan, Ticket to Ride, Luchador, Splendor, and literally hundreds of other games. Sheesh, my Board Game Sherpa channel is all about me doing for others what Johnny Rocks did for me. And now you've seen that Johnny Rocks loves Shadow of Brimstone more than the average person. As a Shadows of Brimstone outsider, I saw how much it pained Johnny when he introduced Shadows of Brimstone to people who did not enjoy the game. I have grown to teasing him relentlessly that if someone doesn't like Shadows of Brimstone, that person is now dead to him. Yes, it's an exaggeration, but there is a kernel of truth in there. And knowing my favorite styles of game much better now, I just figured it was easier to avoid the game and issue completely. That is until a random meeting at GenCon 2023. GenCon 2023, the encounter that could alter a friendship forever. Okay, sorry, that's a little overdramatic, but hey, it's YouTube and it's not completely untrue. So, GenCon 2023 and Johnny Rocks couldn't go. I considered backing out as well, but I'd made a bunch of commitments to be at the show. And my buddy AP smacked me in the head and told me that if I was really serious about this Board Game Sherpa channel, I needed to go there for content. And to AP's credit, he was absolutely right. So I grabbed my other buddy, No Facebook Eric, booked the No-Tel Microtel, and we took the drive up to Indianapolis and had a wonderful time. Since Johnny couldn't make it to the show, I decided to venture into the Flying Frogs booth solo to see if there were any GenCon only promos that I could get him. But like I mentioned before, it's overwhelming in there, and I had no clue where to start. But hey, that's never stopped me before. I went up to a random employee who had just finished helping somebody and told him on my mission to get Brimstone stuff for someone who loves Shadow of Brimstone but couldn't be at the show. As a good salesperson, he started asking me what Johnny had already, and I had no clue. But I did tell him I never played the game because if I played the game and didn't like it, Johnny and I would stop being friends. And the employee was concerned but got a kick out of the description. He then suggested a few miniatures that were only available at GenCon 2023, so Johnny could not have bought them yet. I got ready to buy them when this random employee I just met suggested making a video teasing Johnny for not being at the show, which I quickly said yes to. I appreciate a good teasing video as much as the next guy. He went to get his brother to film the video, and at which point I realized that this random employee was the Flying Frog CEO Scott Hill, and that his brother Jason and him were the co-founders and creators of Shadows of Brimstone.
Hey Johnny, we heard you can't make it to the booth. What's the deal, man? You're sending your friends, you're making them come and do all the work for you? You gotta show up one of these days. Anyway, you got a good buddy here because he's gonna pick you up what you're missing.
And maybe we'll see you next time.
This video was awesome, and I instantly fell in love with Flying Frog Productions as they were filming it. I mean, I literally told the CEO that I would never play the game, and he still went out of his way to help my friend who couldn't make the show. Sure, I bought something small at the booth, but there were some real big spenders at the booth, and he spent time and energy on me. How do you not respect that? Anyway, Scott told his brother Jason my story, and Jason suggested the Brimstone art book as another item for Johnny. Scott thought it was a great idea and showed it to me. It was cool, it was only like $10, so why not? I paid for it, and he took it out of my hands and went around to everyone on the Flying Frog team and had them all autograph it. And let me film him doing it so I could show Johnny the experience when I gave it to him.
All right, let's take it over here. Would you mind signing this? This is for Johnny Rocks. All right. His good friend who's getting it signed for him.
Nice. Yeah, so I mean, most of the stuff is Brimstone Adventure stuff, but we do always try to have it. Well played. Oh, it's on the other side.
This is for Johnny Rocks. He's a drummer. Mary Beth does the soundtracks.
Got it. See it. Perfect.
All right, bye. Wherever there's a little spot.
Yeah.
I thanked Scott profusely and walked out of there having spent maybe $40, but I got the super VIP treatment. I texted the short teasing video and videos of the Flying Frog booth and displays over to Johnny immediately. I would show him the art book signing 2 weeks later when I physically saw him. He loved the video and display, and after we started talking about how great the Flying Frogs guys were to me, Johnny asked me out of the blue, "So are you ready to try Shadows of Brimstone now?" I told him I'd get back to him. There was a lot of fear still there, but the Flying Frog guys were really nice to me. And I'd been loving the long-term campaign game Roleplay Adventures by Thunderworks, so maybe it was time to try Shadows of Brimstone. Later that day, when I was telling No Facebook Eric about Johnny's question, Eric said, "Isn't the Board Game Sherpa channel all about overcoming fear of board games?" And here we are. Johnny came up to my house for game night a couple of weekends after I got back. What are we playing?
We're playing Shadows of Brimstone. We're starting in the Wild West, which is where I started. It's where the game started 10 years ago. So I figured I might as well share that beginning with you. And it's a great place to start. Everything was built upon that initial setting.
How many expansions we got?
How many expansions did I bring, or how many do I have?
That was the answer I wanted.
He is gonna stay where he's at. He doesn't want to be adjacent to you, so he's gonna roll a d6.
Why do you want to be adjacent to me?
Because he's got shootout, which means he always wants to kind of not be next to you.
Okay, that's the word.
You kind of want to get up in his business.
His gibbets.
Yeah. So let's see what he does. Oh, he's gonna hit you with the void bolt. Oh! So you're gonna do 4 damage, and then the last damage. To
Wait. Will this end?
You don't even need to use it.
He's dead?
Yeah, because this did 4. All he needs is 5. This did 4, and this did 2. So that was 5, 15, 20, 25, 30.
Bitch.
35.
The guy is gone, James.
So, did I like it? Well, like I said, this is a 3-part series, so subscribe to be notified when the next episode comes out, and you'll find out if I liked it or not. Don't worry, it'll be soon. Not 3 years between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Not that I'm bitter about that or anything. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and hit a big thumbs up on the video. It really helps bring more people into the board gaming hobby, and that will help increase the amount of people overall who are willing to play your favorite games. Deal? See you next episode. If you're now interested in Shadows of Brimstone, check out a YouTuber called Robs Tabletop Games and search for Shadow of Brimstone. He's a great YouTuber, big fan of flying frogs, and he does a lot of walkthroughs that are a hell of a lot better than what I have here. Go check him out.